Now today we're doing valve cover gaskets on a 2010 Subaru Impreza with around 145,000 miles. Two things to note very quickly before we begin. Number one, the fasteners. The fasteners, they are very, very thin and they are not very strong. In other words, these are the fasteners that run the perimeter around the valve cover or the rocker arm cover. There are 6 on each side. Not strong. Be careful that these don't break on you. One almost broke on me, and I showed the technique on how I was able to remove it. I did get that on camera. Number two, this may be the only video that I'm aware of that will show this technique jacking up the engine from its engine mount. The reason behind that, don't forget this is a boxer engine, so these live on the side, not on top. So on the driver's side, right here is your frame rail, right here is the valve cover, and it was just not enough room to remove this, unfortunately. So I had to jack up the engine to get that extra clearance to remove it. I do show that technique, but if you are doing this on an Impreza 2010 again, driver's side had to jack up the motor or the engine. Passenger side was okay, did not have to jack it up. So that may be okay and help you out. That being said, also Brian's Mobile One has a very good video, highly detailed on how he did this job. I think it's an older, like 03, 04 WRX. But watching these videos, you can get a really good idea on what this job essentially involves in, or what's involved in doing this job. Take your time, that's the main thing. If you're looking to get this done, it could be close to $1,000 just because these fasteners are known to break. Then what the dealership will typically do is remove the engine from the vehicle, which is insane, but there's no working room. Drill out the old fastener, retap it, put the engine back in. So be extra careful when you do this job. So I'm going to start on the driver's side, and that's making as much working room here as I can. So we have a 10mm fastener in the front, sprayed down with some PB Blaster, WD-40. There's one in the rear, and then of course our battery connections. So as you can see, the working room here is incredibly tight. You have the valve cover incredibly close to the frame rail, but I'll do my best to get everything on camera here. Of course, you really need to remove the battery to get better access to everything. You have a couple of fasteners. Just go around the perimeter of the valve cover, a couple on the bottom, which I can certainly give you a better view of. I'll start by removing the spark plug wires. We have a hose here, the filler neck for the oil, and hopefully this doesn't give us too much protest. So again, let's start with the spark plug wires. This is cylinder number 2, that's toward the front of the vehicle. Cylinder number 4 is the rear. And let's just clean this out of the way so we have better working room. And then just move over, and right here, of course, this is the filler neck for the oil. I'm going to start by removing those fasteners. Now these fasteners are a 10mm. There we go. Whoops. I tell you, it's so tight in here. Make sure you're really cleanly on the fastener. You don't want it to strip on you. To remove that hose, just follow it up to the air chamber box. Right here is a little clamp. You can just remove it, easy enough. This will give you more leverage, essentially to almost strain out this hose and just slightly pull it off. So I'm going to very gently pull it up with my right hand, and with my left hand I'll use a flathead and just rotate it, and it'll come right off. Okay, just be gentle when you do this. You don't want to rip the hose by any means. Okay, there we go. So now we have 6 fasteners to remove, and they're 10mm. 1, 2, 3 right back here. Hard to see, but there's a third one, and then on the bottom. Now you could probably get away without jacking up the vehicle. Again, I've already had the car jacked up, but it's very, very tight working room, so that's why jacking up the vehicle essentially gives you a little extra space in a sense. So again, 10 millimeter. There's one. I know the room is really tight here. I wish I can give you a better shot, but this is all I can do. With these Subarus, there's no working room on them. Let me see if I can get a ratchet in that last one. Oh, it's very, very tight. Right here. Okay, right there is where the last one's located. Okay, let me show you the bottom ones. Okay, here we go. So again, from the bottom, we have 1, 2, and the third one, let me see how I'll get access to that in a moment. The last one I'm going to have to do off camera. As you can see, it's really deep back there. I'll just use a wrench and I'll come right back once I remove all these fasteners. Okay, so very quickly, if you are having trouble with that bottom one furthest back toward the firewall, in other words, you have that guy right there, no big deal, the middle one, but the one furthest back is really hard. What I did, I just couldn't do it on camera, it's too tight here, but I just took a wrench and essentially just placed the wrench, okay, on the fastener, which is right about here, just loosened it. Then from underneath the vehicle, I used a ratcheting wrench just to get it loose. It's really tight, it's hard to get to, just be careful because you don't want to strip it. Now this valve cover has been on here for roughly a decade, so it will be sort of stubborn to remove. So I'm just tapping the perimeter of the valve cover from the top, from the bottom, and then just, for example, if you take a look at this point right here where the valve cover meets the cylinder head, slowly rotating it just with a flathead, and with enough just wiggling, it should come off. Let me put the camera down. Now this is where it gets a little tricky, and you may be successful by removing this valve cover without jacking up the engine. It's just incredibly tight, this working room. So what I need to do, there's no way I can get this off. I've been wrestling it with the valve cover for maybe 5 minutes. I tried removing the spark plug gasket covers, which I'll show you in a moment. It's just too tight. So I am going to slightly jack up the side of the engine, and that should give us enough clearance. Now again, double check, make sure that you do indeed need to do this, but on this Impreza, there's just no way. Now just to show you where these fasteners live, so right here again is the cross member, oil pan, okay, that's your drain bolt, and then just look straight up, and right there is one fastener. This is the driver's side, and then the passenger side, let me just move over here. Passenger side, look for the steering boot, okay, exhaust, actually just look at the exhaust straight up, and there's the passenger side. Now I just sprayed both of these with PB Blaster. I'm also going to heat them up because I don't want them to snap. Subarus, especially with this Subaru in the winter months, things snap all the time when I work on this car, so I just want to make sure these things do not snap, otherwise I'm in real trouble. This is a small butane torch that I purchased really when I was doing the bolt joint on this vehicle. There's a bolt that fits around the bolt joint and they're known to snap, and I bought this specifically for that job. Around 10-15 bucks on Amazon approximately. I'll have a link if you do need something like this. I'm just going to heat up that fastener. I don't plan on removing it from the stud. I'm just going to back it out. I think once we lift the engine just slightly, we'll have enough working room just to remove that valve cover. Now, of course, make sure you have a fire extinguisher just in case. The other thing is just clean up as much crud as you can because you just don't want anything just to ignite, obviously. You just push this in, and there you go. Okay, here we go. I'm using a breaker bar. I'll show you what that is in a moment if you're not sure. It's a small fastener too. It's only 14 millimeters, which makes me nervous. I'd rather this be a larger fastener. Just want to make sure you guys can see that. Okay. Actually, let me move the camera back. Okay, here we go. Super tight. It's moving. Okay, I think we're good. Oh, thank goodness. Okay. All right. So again, I'm just going to back this out a little bit, and then we'll jack up the vehicle. I'm sorry, we'll jack up the motor here. Now the passenger side's a little hard to get on camera because you have all this stuff in the way. But nonetheless, it's cleaned, it's heated. Here we go. Same technique, break a bar. Slowly. There we go. So I just have a block of wood and just very slowly jack it up from the oil pan. Sorry, I wish the lighting was better here. I really have to, really should build a device to take care of this, but here we go. Just slowly. And okay, awesome. It is moving. Let me show you a different shot. Okay, so here we go, another shot. You see it moving up? Okay, that should be enough. It's still a tight fit, but you can wiggle this out. There we go. Wow. All right. And then just slowly pull off the old gasket. And then what I'm going to do is just jump right over to the passenger side right now. And we'll see if we have to jack up the engine for the passenger side. Okay. Okay, here we go. Passenger side. These are just flathead fasteners, plastic. Not a fun job on a Subaru. It really isn't. These valve cover gaskets. All right. Okay, this is where the air filter lives. A couple fasteners here. Now to remove this plastic cover, we have a 10 millimeter fastener there and another one right there. Should get an air filter where I'm at this. Alrighty. There we go. Now the passenger side looks like there's a little bit more working room in the sense I don't have to go underneath the vehicle to get access to all 6 fasteners around the valve cover. It's really a mirror image of the driver's side. You have your 2 spark plug wires. This is cylinders 1 and 3. You can remove this top hose running to the power steering pump if you want. This one you have to leave where it is because it's for the AC compressor. And we'll see if we have to jack up the engine. So again, I'm going to start by the spark plug wires here. Okay, so I'm in the process of removing these fasteners. The top, so this is toward the driver's side, or I'm sorry, the front of the vehicle. No problem getting access to. No problem getting access to. I'm using a 1/4 inch ratchet with a 10 millimeter socket, and this is just a little extension I have in a sense just to give me more leverage. Now this one, the middle one, really was about to strip, taking very, very slowly, taking my time removing this. Now you can hear it. It is loose. Look how tight it is. You hear that? I'm just going to slowly back this out, spray some PB Blaster. Back it out, spray some PB Blaster because I don't want this to snap. That's going to make my day very bad. Bottom one, no problem. That one, no problem. The one toward the rear, I did not loosen yet. It looks like I'm just going to use a hand wrench and just back it out. So let me just work on this and I'll come right back. So again, if you have a similar issue, PB Blaster, WD-40, a little crack, that's all it takes. It does work. And then we'll back it out slowly. And I apologize, I really have nowhere to put the camera on this side of the vehicle. But again, small, 1/4 inch ratchet, 10mm socket, little extension. There we go. And then finally, it's loose enough. You take a look at the head here. Very close to stripping. See? Just be really careful when you remove these. Okay, now the valve cover is ready to come out. One other thing, there's a 10mm fastener for the timing cover. So just make sure you remove that. Of course, there's a drain pan, which I didn't mention earlier. Make sure you put a drain pan underneath the vehicle. Once you do this job, you're going to clean off the oil as best as you can off the exhaust. But just let it run outside for a little bit because it's going to smell. But it looks like we'll be able to get this out without jacking up the engine. Let's give it a try. So what I'm going to do is pull it back. I just did it off camera, just see if I can get this out, and it looks like I can. I'm going to pull it out and just keep it as parallel to the frame rail as possible, as much as possible. It's really tight here with all these hoses and everything else in the way. Hold on, that was a little bit easier before. There we go. Okay, yep. There we go. Whew. Okay, there's the other valve cover. So here we have our brand new Felt Pro gaskets, not only for the valve covers, but also for the spark plug tube seal. That's this guy right here. Very, very hard, so good time to replace them. What I'll do off camera is clean up the valve covers with some brake clean, rags, maybe a wire brush. They look really good anyway. This is the advantage, and this is something that Brian's Mobile One talks about in his video. This is the advantage when you change your oil when you're supposed to. So this, since I've had this car for the last over 5 years, always synthetic, always changed, typically within 7,000 miles or so. So really easy to clean in my case. So once we jump on the car, I'll show you also the torque sequence, because you can't just, you know, start tying down bolts where you want to. There's a certain torque sequence you have to follow, and hopefully we'll be in good shape. Okay, so we're pretty much ready to reinstall the valve covers. Now the Felt Pro kit does include new gaskets for the spark plug tubes. Make sure you also replace those. And I cleaned off the surface area the best that I can, completely around the perimeter, just using a rag with brake clean. Also, I will change the oil after this, because as you do this job, you may get a little crud in this rocker arm assembly area. You don't want that circulating in the engine, so also change the oil and you know, be safe. Now as you do this job, if you get sort of confused and you forgot which side is left and right stamped inside of the valve cover, you will see a letter. So R is for right, so that's the passenger side. And don't forget, the passenger side also has the fastener location for the timing cover. The left hand side, or the driver's side, does not. Okay, so easy enough. As you can see, everything is nice and clean, sprayed down the inside with brake clean. And then if you want, you can use compressed air just to make sure there's no crud inside the valley here. Just go ahead and reinstall the gasket, and we'll place it back on the vehicle. Now I'm sorry for the angle, I just need the working room here to reinstall the valve cover. I do have the engine slightly jacked up here. I want to be very careful not to nick anything. Okay. I may need some more room here actually. It's very tight. Oh boy. There we go. Make sure the gasket is nice and seated. Place this back on here, and I'll take a look from the bottom too. Make sure everything looks okay. So now we're about to reinstall the passenger side. Now there's a certain sequence on how to tighten the fasteners. This is so the gasket seats correctly around the cylinder head. If you just start tightening things wherever you want, you can develop a leak. So this is the correct procedure. Now when you tighten these, they're only torqued to 5 foot-pounds from the factory. So what that means is don't over tighten them. You don't have to. You will snap them. Okay, so once this is back on the vehicle, first one is top one. Tighten this one. This is number 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's the first procedure, or the first round. Second round, just make sure this is tight, and then go back to the bottom, tighten this one. That's it. So now I'm about to torque down all of the fasteners. Just want to make sure everything looks great. Let me give you a different angle from the rear. As you can see, everything looks good, so let's just torque them down. Okay, so this is the first one. Now your best bet really for a lot of these fasteners, especially the rear, use a ratcheting wrench. If you don't have one, we'll have a link in the description box below to our affiliate Amazon site. If you'd like to help us out, we do appreciate it, and you'll find everything that you need there. So 1, 2, now let's go on top to number 3. So number 3 is on the top all the way to the rear, okay? Way back here. Number 4 is on the bottom front. Okay, number 5 I'll do off camera. And then number 6 is the top front. And then this is the 6th one. Okay, and then just one more time, the top. So I'll do off camera just to get better leverage on this, and then on the bottom. Now on the passenger side, we will tighten up all fasteners off camera. It's really just a mirror job of what we did on the driver's side. Then don't forget we have the 2 fasteners for the engine mounts, reinstall the airbox assembly, and start up the vehicle. So now I have both engine mounts, the fasteners installed. If you want to torque them, they are torqued to 63 foot-pounds. If you do not have a torque wrench, just make them nice and tight. And we're pretty much done here. So I'm just going to start the vehicle, let it run outside for a little bit. That's so any oil that's spilled on the exhaust, let it just burn off. Check for leaks, and that's it. Next thing for this vehicle will be an exhaust. This thing has a leaking exhaust. I'll probably replace it from the cat back. We'll see, but that will be up shortly. Any questions, comments, please leave it below. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.